Hey, what's up, everybody? It's been a while. My name is Paul, back with another episode of Napoleon. We're doing Napoleon's retreat from Moscow. First of all, I want to apologize about my voice right now. I had a lot of work done on my teeth, my mouth. My face is still like really swollen, and as you can tell, it kind of sounds like I got like a mouthful of something because it kind of is. But I'll leave that in like a separate video that I'll end up doing separate because nobody wants to hear about my mouth issues. So anyways, yeah, where were we? Yeah, I'm happy to be back. I've wanted to do this like in for forever, but I just wasn't able to. I haven't been able to talk for about a week. I know it's been like 2 weeks since I think I made a video, but I'm gonna try and make it through this. I'm gonna try and talk so you guys can understand me. And I apologize if I'm slurring or whatnot. I just couldn't wait any longer. And this doesn't mean I'm going to be back to videos on a regular pace. But I am going to try and start getting videos out. I promise. Excuse me. But yes, Napoleon's retreat from Moscow, 1812. So I kind of wish these titles wouldn't have spoilers, but I already figured, he wasn't going to win this next one. I mean, if I remember correctly, was it Borodino? I'm not sure, but the last battle, he won. I mean, he took a lot of death. I'm trying to. Man, it's been a while since I've been watching these. There's a lot of deaths on his side, and there's obviously more deaths on the Russian side, and Russians retreated. They wanted to, I guess, retreat and live to fight another day, and that's where Moscow's going to come to place. And just by the title, it looks like the Russians are going to get the better of Napoleon. So yeah, I guess we're going to jump into this. Thank you guys for joining me here, and this is a long video, guys, so sit tight. Sit tight. I just got some water. So I hope you guys got some beer to drink. I just finished eating, so I'm good on that part. But yeah, let's get to it, guys. Napoleon's retreat on Moscow. Let me see. Yeah, I believe this is the last one. I think in a series. Well, not Napoleon series, but it looks like it's the last one of Russia. So I don't know, because what does that say? It's Leipzig. I don't know what that is, but that's like the next one. But anyways, we're focusing on Russia right now. And you guys, I know what you guys are thinking. Just push play on the damn video and watch it. So I'm sorry. I get excited and then I don't talk right. And yeah, I'm sorry. What am I doing here, guys? What am I doing? All right, full screen. Please work. Peace lies in Moscow. Napoleon.
Russia, 1812. Napoleon invades his former ally with the largest army Europe has ever seen. But for the French Emperor, the decisive blow remains frustratingly beyond reach.
Yep.
Russia's resilience is unlike anything he's ever encountered. And as winter closes in, his army begins the most infamous retreat in history.
Infamous retreat. Like, infamous retreat in history. Like, when you retreat, you just leave, right? Okay, well, you guys beat us, so we're leaving. So I wonder what's the big deal about infamous retreat.
The 15th of September, 1812. 83 days after invading Russia, a week after his costly victory at Borodino, Napoleon entered Moscow. He expected to be greeted by dignitaries, formally offering the city's surrender. Instead, he discovered that 90% of Moscow's inhabitants had fled. A fire had started the previous night and was blamed on drunken soldiers. But over the next 48 hours, fires...
I'm sorry. This must have been in the last video. I just forgot. I thought there was gonna be like a battle for Moscow, but apparently he just took it over. But what, if I remember correctly, wasn't that in the end of the previous video? I'm sorry, it's just been a while. But interesting. I wonder if he retreats from Moscow when he already has it. So this is interesting.
Started the previous night and was blamed on drunken soldiers. But over the next 48 hours, fires continued to break out across Moscow until most of the city was ablaze. Count Fyodor Rostopchin, the city's governor, had ordered that Moscow be destroyed rather than allowed to fall into enemy hands.
What?
And now fires were being started deliberately by Russian criminals, freed from jail and acting on police orders.
I'm sorry, that's insane. Like, you're talking about going over the top here. Like, that's your city, it's your country, and you're gonna light it ablaze because you don't want the enemy, I guess, to enjoy it or step foot in it. You'd rather it go up in flames. I mean, that's serious stuff. Like, I guess this is why he retreats, because you can't stay in a place that's in flames. Once again, I'm sorry for my voice, guys. I really am.
Police orders. French soldiers rounded up and shot any they could catch. But the inferno was impossible to contain. In 4 days, 2/3 of Moscow was destroyed. With the fires finally under control, Napoleon's soldiers turned their attention to systematically looting the ruined city. While from his new quarters in the Kremlin, Napoleon sent a letter to Emperor Alexander in St. Petersburg, inviting him to make peace and end the war. He received no reply. Napoleon waited, confident that Alexander would eventually negotiate. But as the days passed, he grew increasingly uneasy. Cossack raids were disrupting his vital communications with Paris, as well as the arrival of supplies. While the steady attrition of French forces and Russian reinforcements meant Napoleon was outnumbered for the first time in the campaign.
Oh.
Rumors also reached him that his reluctant allies, Prussia and Austria, were in secret talks with his enemies. Napoleon had proposed that the army winter in Moscow, but that now looked too dangerous. Reluctantly, he accepted that the army would have to move back to Smolensk to find safe winter quarters. Napoleon knew how severe Russian winters could be, but continued to put off his departure, reassured by fine October weather, and hoping that at the last minute there might be a message from Alexander offering peace. It never came. On the
So basically, his allies are turning against him secretly, and the Russian army is like nowhere to be found. And they're just sitting there in Moscow. It's like, what do you do? You're him. I mean, I guess the Russian leaders like, just sit there. You're just eventually he's gonna leave, right? Because you can't, because the winter's coming. He's gonna run out of food. The supply lines are being stopped. Uh, I mean, and that seems so odd to me. Like, but shit. If the Russians don't have to sign a treaty, they really don't even have to fight because I don't know. It's just crazy. So right now, it looks like he's like, just what else can I do up here? Napoleon's thinking like, I might as well just take my troops back. We're about to get some crazy winter here, and yeah, I mean, continue on. But there's got to be more to it than this, right? Come on, we're gonna have a battle. There's gonna be some kind of, I'm expecting something here, but oops.
by fine October weather, and hoping that at the last minute there might be a message from Alexander offering peace. It never came. On the 13th of October, the first light snow fell. 5 days later, Kutuzov launched a surprise attack on Murat's advance guard at Vinkovo and defeated it. Napoleon, stung into action, gave the order for the army to leave Moscow the next day. Our video sponsor, the legendary World of Tanks, is the home of online multiplayer armoured mayhem. This game has more than 550
My campaign begins for Alexander.
100,000 men of the Grande Armée left Moscow in a column 10 miles long, with an estimated 40,000 carriages and carts. There were women and children too, army wives and the vivandières, the women who cooked for the soldiers, as well as some civilians. Every wagon and pack was stuffed with as much food and loot as possible. As he set off, Sergeant Bourgogne of the Imperial Guard made an inventory of his pack. It contained several pounds of sugar, some rice, some biscuit, half a bottle of liqueur, a woman's Chinese silk dress embroidered in gold and silver, several gold and silver ornaments, amongst them a piece of the cross of Ivan the Great. Besides these, I had my uniform, a woman's large riding cloak, 2 silver pictures in relief, 12 inches long and 8 high, all in the finest workmanship. Also several lockets and a Russian prince's spittoon set with precious stones. I wore over my shirt a yellow silk waistcoat, which I had made myself out of a woman's skirt. Over that, a large cape lined with ermine and a large pouch hung at my side by a silver cord. This was full of various things, amongst them a crucifix in gold and silver and a little Chinese porcelain vase. Then there were my firearms, powder flask, and 60 cartridges in the box. This heavily
I guess, you know, your family's waiting for you at home and stuff. You know, going to bring some souvenirs, you know, stuff to sell, you know. Yeah.
This heavily encumbered army did not yet realize it was in a race against time. The Russians were beginning to move against the flanks of Napoleon's 550-mile-deep salient. That very day, Wittgenstein's army was driving back Marshal Saint-Cyr's outnumbered force at Polotsk and drawing Victor's 9th Corps west to support them. In the south, Admiral Chichagov's advance had Schwarzenberg's Austrian Corps falling back to cover Warsaw. The corridor was closing.
Look at that.
And then there was the weather. Though Napoleon was confident his army could reach winter quarters in Smolensk in 20 days, well before the more extreme temperatures were due to hit.
Wow.
Napoleon planned to withdraw via Kaluga, through unspoilt country where the army could forage for supplies. But Kutuzov sent General Dokhturov's 6th Corps to block the road at Maloyaroslavets. In fierce fighting, Italian troops of Eugene's 4th Corps drove the Russians out of the town. It was a hard-won victory, reminiscent of the fighting at Borodino.
Wow.
Kutuzov now stood between Napoleon and Kaluga. Napoleon now took the unusual step of conferring with his marshals. And after discussing various options, he decided that rather than seek another major battle, they would retreat the way they'd come, along the Smolensk road.
Wow.
Napoleon had...
I mean, that seems like a big, I don't know, just a big switch in how things have gone. Like he's backing down from a fight. Napoleon, like the master of like war, you know, he's like backing down. I mean, things are, you know, they seem to be unraveling a little bit. But then again, it's Napoleon. He wants to save his forces, so I know it makes sense, but it just seems a little off.
Napoleon had hoped to avoid this route, as it meant marching back through country already stripped bare of supplies. The day after the fighting at Maloyaroslavets, Napoleon was nearly captured by a group of Cossacks, and saved only by General Rapp's charge at the head of his escort. After this close shave, Napoleon had a phial of poison made up, which he carried around his neck in case of capture.
Wow. It's crazy. Makes sense, though. He'd be tortured. He's not going down like that.
People are not asking the right questions. They're not asking the right questions
I don't
because
know
they
why.
all think they already know the
Yeah,
answers.
ads. Sorry.
Napoleon's army set off on its new course, shadowed at a respectful distance by Kutuzov's army to the south. They passed the old battlefield of Borodino, a grisly, unnerving sight.
Yeah, that was
Crows
crazy.
pecked at half-buried corpses. Relentless marching quickly began to tire out men and horses. A few days later, the temperature fell below freezing. The army's overworked, starving horses died en masse. Discipline.
Just want to say, back then, it's not like you had, heat. Our homes full of heat. Imagine camping in this. I mean, if you're a regular soldier and didn't have all the luxuries as the commanders do, and that had to be rough. It just had to be rough. Didn't have the best shoes and insulation. I don't know.
Discipline began to break down, as some drivers simply dumped the sick and wounded by the roadside to try to ensure their own survival. As the French column became increasingly strung out, General Miloradovich, commanding Kutuzov's advance guard, fell on Davout's rear guard outside Vyazma. For a few hours, Davout's first corps was cut off, until Eugène and Ney came to his rescue. The battle ended with street fighting in Vyazma, as the French hastily evacuated the burning town. For the soldiers of the Grande Armée, so unaccustomed to retreats and routes, Vyazma was an alarming, demoralizing blow.
Exactly. He's getting from behind. You're going to retreat. We're going to take some of you guys with us, man. I don't blame him. You don't blame him.
On the 4th of November, it began to snow heavily. The next night, temperatures plummeted to -20 degrees centigrade. Few men or women had proper winter clothing or access to shelter. Many froze to death overnight. The next morning, wagons and guns were abandoned. Many soldiers sought to save themselves, ignoring officers, stealing horses and food, and leaving the column to scour the countryside for supplies. Many of these foragers were found by the Cossacks. Some cut down or lanced, others robbed of every possession and left to freeze. In a few cases, they were handed over to peasants, eager for retribution against the foreign invaders who had plundered all they owned. As the army struggled on towards Smolensk through blizzards, Napoleon ordered Eugène's 4th Corps to strike out for Vitebsk, where there were large French supply depots. But Vitebsk had already fallen to the Russians. 4th Corps was too weak to fight its way through, and rejoined the army, minus its artillery and most of its baggage. A colonel who saw 4th Corps at this stage described men without shoes, almost without clothes, exhausted and famished, sitting on their packs, sleeping on their knees, and only rousing themselves out of this stupor to grill slices of horse meat or melt bits of ice.
Damn, that's crazy.
Just 3 weeks after leaving Moscow, a third of the army was dead or captured. About half the rest formed a growing army of stragglers, men without units, prepared to fight only to survive. Napoleon reached Smolensk on the 9th of November. The first troops into town ransacked the supply depots, leaving nothing for those who followed, including Ney's rearguard, which arrived 6 days later. Napoleon had hoped to make Smolensk his winter base, but the state of the army and lack of supplies meant the retreat had to continue. But the 5 days he spent there gave Kutuzov time to circle ahead and prepare an ambush. When the French retreat resumed, he struck 30 miles west of Smolensk at Krasny. In 3 days of desperate fighting through knee-deep snow, Napoleon used his Imperial Guard to hold open the road, as Eugène and Davout's corps fought their way through the ambush with heavy losses. 2 regiments of the Young Guard were ordered to make a sacrificial counterattack to keep the Russians at bay, and were virtually annihilated. Kutuzov held back many of his troops and was blamed for not trying to destroy Napoleon's army when he had the chance. It's possible he was concerned at the number of raw conscripts in his own army, also suffering terribly in the freezing conditions.
True. He has his own people to worry about, you know? Damn.
Not every French corps broke through at Krasny. Marshal Ney and his 6,000-strong rearguard arrived on the 18th of November to find the road blocked by 60,000 Russian troops.
Wow.
And no sign of the promised support from Davout's First Corps. Ney's men hurled themselves against the Russian lines with desperate courage, but were mown down. Rejecting several invitations to surrender, Ney led the survivors in a daring night crossing of the Dnieper River, then across 45 miles of open country under constant attack from Platov's Cossacks to reach Orsha. By the time...
So that had to be terrifying. 6,000, you meet 60,000, and you still go and attack. Man, and at least you had the mindset, you know, in the middle of the night, you know, to escape, you know, because if you stay, you're all dead. You're all dead. There's just no way, man. The suffering going on, like with this retreat, man, you got to feel for these soldiers, man. They just want to get out of there, and it's just sad.
By the time Ney rejoined the army, his rearguard was down to just 800 fighting men, leading a column of several thousand stragglers. The army regarded his escape as a miracle, and when Napoleon heard of it, he immediately dubbed Marshal Ney the bravest of the brave.
Right. Right.
I just wanted to show you the USCCA's free concealed carry reciprocity and gun laws map. Super quick. Check it out.
It's been serious.
Napoleon had escaped one trap, but now 3 Russian armies were closing in from different directions and outnumbered him nearly 3 to 1. From the east, Kutuzov's main army with 65,000 men. From the north, Wittgenstein with 30,000, steadily driving back Marshal Victor's 9th Corps. And from the south, Admiral Chichagov's army of Moldavia with 34,000, having detached General Ostensaken with 30,000 to prevent Schwarzenberg's Austrians and Reynier's Saxon Corps marching to Napoleon's aid. Napoleon was heading for Minsk, a major French supply base with vast stores of the food, clothing, shoes and ammunition that his army so desperately needed. But on the 21st of November, disastrous news arrived. Minsk had fallen to Chichagov. He'd then marched on Borisov, driven out the Polish garrison, and captured its bridge over the Berezina River. By rights, the Berezina ought to have frozen solid by now, so Napoleon could have crossed anywhere. But a sudden thaw had turned the river into a torrent of ice and freezing water.
Damn.
Napoleon was at least joined by the hard-fighting Marshal Oudinot and his Second Corps, which hadn't suffered as badly as the main column on its retreat from Polotsk. Oudinot launched an immediate counterattack on Borisov and retook the town, but couldn't stop the Russians burning the bridge. With no other bridge for miles in either direction, it seemed Napoleon's exhausted army was finally doomed. But there was one sliver of hope.
Yeah.
Polish cavalry had found a ford across the river near the village of Studienka. Napoleon issued a flurry of orders. Second Corps was to fake preparations for a river crossing south of Borisov. Victor's 9th Corps, arriving from the north, was to form a rear guard east of Studienka to hold the Russians at bay, while engineers worked as quickly as possible to build pontoon bridges across the river and win Napoleon's army a fighting chance of escape.
Man, this retreat, man, it's like never ending.
On the afternoon of the 25th of November, General Eblé's Dutch engineers began building two 300-foot pontoon bridges across the Berezina River. They worked day and night, sometimes chest-deep in freezing water, completed both bridges in less than 24 hours. Few of the engineers survived the ordeal.
Yeah.
Chichagov had been totally
Was it good? Like the sacrifices, man. They're trying to save their lives to get out of there, and they're like, we'll jump in this friggin' freezing cold water. Like hypothermia. It's like you're basically sacrificing yourselves for your buddies, because you know you're not. You jump in some cold water back then, you get out, you're free, you're dead. You're not going to survive it back then. So you're basically just doing it, for your country, for your brothers in arms. It's just crazy, man. The sacrifices.
fooled by the diversion south of Borisov and was moving his troops south to face it, allowing Napoleon's army to begin crossing its rickety bridges virtually unopposed. Oudinot's Second Corps led the way to secure a bridgehead, followed the next day by the remnants of the main army. Priority was given to formed troops, still able to fight. For the time being, the army's vast crowd of stragglers remained on the far bank. By the time Chichagov realized his mistake and began moving north, Napoleon had troops in place to defend the crossing.
Yeah.
On the east bank, General Partonneux's 12th Division, 4,000 relatively fresh troops from Victor's 9th Corps, formed the rear guard. As Platov's Cossacks approached from the east, the vanguard of Kutuzov's main army, Partonneux tried to rejoin 9th Corps. But caught in a swirling blizzard, with visibility down to 50 meters, he marched straight into Wittgenstein's army. His entire division was killed or captured.
Damn.
The next morning, Chichagov and Wittgenstein launched coordinated attacks on both sides of the river. There was desperate fighting on the west bank, where Marshal Oudinot was, yet again, seriously wounded, but his Swiss infantry held the line, until General Doumerc's cuirassiers, the army's last heavy cavalry, charged and routed the Russians. At great cost, Polish and German troops of Victor's rearguard held off the Russians until dark, then pulled back across the bridges. For 2 nights, officers had been trying to get the vast camp of stragglers to cross the bridges when they weren't being used. But with temperatures reaching -30 centigrade, they'd preferred to stay put, huddled around their fires.
Right, I understand.
At dawn on the 29th, with the army leaving and the Russians approaching, thousands of stragglers surged in panic towards the bridges. Dozens were crushed underfoot. Others fell or were pushed into the water, or tried to swim, which was certain death.
Yep.
When French engineers burned the bridges at 9 a.m., thousands were cut off and left to the mercy of the advancing Cossacks. Some became prisoners. Others were simply put out of their misery.
Right? I mean, damn. You're so cold, it's like, it's gonna take me out of my misery, right? I mean, they're probably fixing to die anyway just because of the weather and they're freezing to death. One second, I need to see that.
Since the retreat began 43 days earlier, the Grande Armée had marched nearly 500 miles, under constant attack, starved, exhausted, and for the last 23 days, in lethal sub-zero temperatures, without proper clothing or shelter.
Rest.
In that time, the fighting strength of the Grande Armée had been reduced from around 124,000 men to 20,000.
What?
With as many stragglers still following the army. As the retreat continued to Vilna, the weather turned even worse, the temperatures falling to -37 degrees centigrade.
Wow.
The Russian armies at least now held back, leaving the winter, Cossacks and Russian peasants to finish off the invaders. On the 5th of December, Napoleon left the army, travelling incognito across Europe at breakneck speed, and reaching Paris in just 13 days.
Paris.
Naturally, English satirists capitalized on Napoleon seeming to abandon his defeated army. And many soldiers did regard it as an act of betrayal. But his generals supported his decision to leave. There'd already been one attempted coup against Napoleon in Paris, and there was much work to be done to rebuild the army and reassure France's allies. On the 9th of December, 51 days after the retreat began, around 20,000 ragged survivors of the Grande Armée began crossing the Niemen River back into friendly Polish territory. According to legend, Marshal Ney was the last man across.
Really? That's just insane.
Napoleon's invasion of Russia had proved to be one of the greatest military disasters in history.
Yeah.
He had made fatal miscalculations about geography, logistics, and above all, Russia's political and strategic response to his invasion. These blunders cost his empire around 500,000 men,
Wow.
as well as 250,000 horses and 1,000 cannon. Put another way, of every 12 men who marched into Russia with the Grande Armée, one was killed in action or died of wounds. 2 were taken prisoner, one of whom died in captivity. 7 died from disease or the effects of climate.
Wow.
Just 2 returned alive.
That's insane.
Contrary to myth, many more soldiers had died in the summer advance from heat, typhus and dysentery than were lost in the winter retreat.
True.
Russian military casualties were estimated at 150,000, and a huge but unknown number of civilian deaths. The Russian campaign was a catastrophe for Napoleon. Not just in lost troops and resources, but in damage to prestige and reputation. That winter, all his enemies sensed weakness and prepared to join forces against him. But the Emperor wasn't going down without a fight. Back in Paris, he admitted to his ministers, "Fortune has dazzled me, gentlemen. I've let it lead me astray. Instead of following my plan, I went to Moscow. I thought I'd make peace there. I stayed too long. I've made a grave mistake, but I'll have the means to repair it."
Really?
Thank you to all the Patreon supporters who make this.
Wow, guys. Like, he basically lost, what, 500,000 men in that whole thing. Russia's just too big, man. It's just, once you got there and had all those people already lost, man, I don't know, man. It's just so hard to comprehend right now. It's all the people who died. Like, they're basically just retreat the whole time, being attacked the whole time while they're retreating. And just the weather and everything, man, that must have been hell. Now he's only got 20,000 men. And let's see here. The Road of Liberty, I have no idea what that is. So I have no idea where Napoleon's going from here. No idea. He just took like the biggest L in like history, basically, right here. All his men died. All his enemies are coming together. They see weakness. They're gonna attack. If they're gonna attack, the time is now. Napoleon's gotta rally whatever troops he has and make some alliances somewhere else to get more troops, right? I'm sorry. I really do apologize if you guys can't understand me. I really do apologize. But yeah, but another like epic episode from Epic History TV. Shout out once again to this amazing channel. A great episode. I thank you guys once again for watching. I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. It's definitely one of the top ones for sure. It is just very different from the rest of the one. It was just battles. This one was like, it was just a retreat, and they're just trying to do everything they can to survive. They just want to get out of there. They just want it to be done. Get out of Russia with, as best as you can, with as many troops as you can. And damn, losses were real, man. Losses were heavy. So, yeah, please hit that like and subscribe, guys. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I'll definitely be continuing the journey. I'm not sure when the next episode will be up. Like I said, like my mouth is not that sore today, so I'm able to do this. And I figure I'm actually able to talk some today, so hopefully I can start, getting more videos out on a regular pace, and hopefully you guys are able to understand me. I really enjoyed this, and yeah, I appreciate you guys watching with me, and on to the next one, guys. I'll catch you guys in future videos, and I had a lot of fun. I really did have a lot of fun, and nice to be back. I really missed this stuff, and so yeah, peace. I'll catch you guys in future videos.